On your left, Ketter, number 11 on Open Series leaderboard. He knows that this is a very important tournament for him. There are some tournaments that he's not going to be able to make it out to. Portland, for example, we know a lot of players are going back-to-back. You know, some players are going to fly to Portland, play in the Open Series event, and then stay in Seattle for the week and then play in the Invitational. Kent can't do that because of finals. So he can't go to Portland, for example, though he will be in Seattle for the Invitational. He's already mentioned that he has bought his ticket to us. So we're going to see exactly what does happen with him, because he had a great Season 1 and Season 2, 9th place in both of the Invitationals then. But he might be on the outside looking in. Ferguson going to play Temple of Mal, see if his card on top. Ketter going to sacrifice Bloodstained Mire. We are underway here in round number 8.
I've spoken about this numerous times over the year. You never know what the point is that mattered until everything is all said and done. And for Kent, who built up a pretty sizable lead over the course of Season 1 and into Season 2, looked like he was a lock for a Players' Championship, has a lot of work in front of him.
Ketter going to search up a swamp with his Bloodstained Mire. There's a Mountain just passing the turn back. Deck doesn't really get started until turn 3.
And that's why I like Andy's build. He's at least trying. I don't know if the card quality is the highest here in Bloodstone Champion. Tough in a deck that has so many lands that come to play tapped and all that, but philosophically, I like what Andy's trying to do.
Well, it's clearly working out for him so far. He is sitting at 7-0 after all.
Yes. If this was round 1, I would temper my enthusiasm a little bit about what is going on in this deck, but at 7-0, he's at least had some success so far today.
Now that Rebel Master is dead very quickly. Lightning Strike's going to get that off the table. Ferguson will untap and draw a card here. It's a Nomad Outpost. Perhaps he was hoping that third land would come into play untap, but it does not. And this is going to be kind of a weird game, I think. I think we're just going to see a lot of removal go back and forth, though. Here is a Brain Maggot. I can't imagine that's going to have the opportunity to live very long. But you take a look at Ketter's hand. He's got 3 lands over there. A Caves of Koilos, along with 2 copies of Battlefield Forge, Sorin, Solemn Visitor, and then a Lightning Strike.
So at the worst-case scenario, Andy can take the Sorin and break up Kent's curve and force a Lightning Strike on a pretty marginal threat. Or if he can battle his way through the Sorin, he can take a Lightning Strike, and then Kent's really reduced to nothing. Either way, good stuff for Andy.
Well, Sorin is gone. There's a land for Ketter. See him bring Lightning Strike forward. He's just going to pass the turn back. He's had success in this building before. When we came here, week 3 of Season 1, runner-up in our Standard Open, lost to Mike Kenny in the finals in a Stormbreath Dragon Mirror. Unsurprisingly, Kent playing a deck that can cast Stormbreath Dragon. So here's a Brain Maggot yet again. Looks like Ketter is going to kill that with a Lightning Strike. And it doesn't work the way it used to, Mesmeric Fiend style.
Right. Most of those cards are reworded now to say as opposed to having 2 separate clauses.
Yeah. Now, he will get to see Ketter's hand, but it is no longer the way that it used to be. So that's going to bite the dust.
But he already knows the contents of Ketter's hand because the Lightning Strike was the draw. Yep.
And now there is a Bloodsoaked Champion and passing the turn. So Ketter is going to get to work here with his Planeswalker. The draw for the turn was a Lightning Strike.
Even though this is turn 4, Bloodsoaked Champion is still going to, or turn 5 now going into Kent's turn. Given the nature of Kent's hand, Bloodsoaked Champion is going to be really good here. It's a very good card at taxing Sorin.
You want to talk about underplayed cards?
Yeah, the problem is that it's hard to build an aggressive deck in this format that has black mana untapped on turn 1.
Yeah.
But the power level of this card is through the roof. And Kent can't even cast his Planeswalker.
There's Lightning Strike. I'll take care of Bloodsoaked Champion. Probably not the best use of Lightning Strike, but it just kind of is what it is. Here's Brain Maggot. That's going to take Sorin. Mountain is the draw. And I think we kind of know how this goes, right? One player missing land drops. Kent is flooding. Oftentimes it's a player who's mana screwed.
Yeah,
that wins these kind of games.
Whoever draws out of it first, and Andy already with a Bloodsoaked Champion ready to get back as well.
Yeah, and that's going to come back from the graveyard. I believe Ferguson just has a boatload of removal in his hand, so he can just kind of chip away here. Copy a Chain of the Rocks. Doesn't seem like the worst thing to draw this turn.
Though you can still see the trouble here that Bloodsoaked Champion causes for Kent. The Sorin is really hard to deploy and maximize in this kind of situation. And is Kent going to go ahead and Chain of the Rocks of Bloodsoaked Champion? I suppose he can, but that's not very exciting either.
I can tell he's giving a lot of thought. It seems like it's something he doesn't want to have to do.
The other problem is that Andy stalled on lands.
Yeah.
So you know there's other stuff left over, and both of these threats are on the anemic side.
Also, you're playing a Mardu deck, your opponent's playing a Mardu deck. That means that we're probably thinking the same thing, which is, oh God, Butcher of the Horde.
Yep.
I'd rather say Chain of the Rocks for that. But he's going to use it on the Brain Maggot. Here's Sorin. That's going to go up and pass the turn back over to Ferguson.
Yeah, it has to go up because there's not a lot to be accomplished by it making a token.
There's a Lightning Strike. Putting it down to 2. Bloodsoaked Champion can just finish it off if it'd like. And it will. So there goes Sorin. You can say that it got a Lightning Strike, I guess.
Yep.
And now there's Butcher of the Horde, and that's the problem. That big guy is here. And a Magma Jet does not line up very well against that.
Nor the Bloodsoaked Champion.
Mm-hmm. And also, if Ferguson gets a little creative, he can sacrifice the Bloodsoaked Champion to the Butcher to deny Scry.
Yeah.
Ketter looks like he's going to cast this. He's going to go after that. And it looks like doesn't sacrifice it to the Butcher.
Yep.
Slight misstep there, I think.
Yeah, it could have just cut off a Scry for free. And he's still in a great spot.
Both those cards are going to go to the bottom. Ketter going to pass the turn back. Ferguson going to draw a card.
And Ken threw away 2 real cards, which
I saw Butcher among them.
Which to me I think means he's searching for Crackling Doom.
Sure.
He knows that he can't try to block with his own threat because Andy probably has removal spells, and so he needs to find a straight answer to the Butcher, and even his own Butcher is not that kind of card right now.
Goblin Rabble Master the draw. That's the kind of card that can turn the game around, but I'd be surprised if Ferguson doesn't have a removal spell here, and he does have one. One could say the best one. It's a copy of Crackling Doom. It's going to put Ketter down to 8.
Bloodsoaked Champion is a nightmare for Ken's deck. This is causing a ton of problems.
It seems like if the Mardu deck becomes very popular, in a Mardu mirror, Bloodsoaked Champion could be one of the best cards.
It's so good against Sorin, specifically against that card. Ken couldn't even do anything with Sorin that game because if he makes a token, and he goes, okay, attack your Sorin. Do you want to block with your token? Okay, I can just recast Bloodsoaked Champion out of the graveyard because it triggers the raid off itself. You're going to say no blocks? All right, well, your Sorin's dead, and all you did was make a 2/2 flyer for 4 mana. And we saw that all over the course of that game where Ken could just not do anything with the Sorins because of Bloodsoaked Champion.
Sideboard time. We'll take a look at Ketter's first. I see an Elspeth. I've also got 2 copies of Glare of Heresy, 2 Utter Ends, 2 Chandra Pyromancer, 2 copies of Hostilities, 3 Read the Bones, and 3 Anger of the Gods. Now this is interesting, right? Because we are in kind of like we're in between like an aggro / mid-range matchup. We're definitely not in a control matchup here, though there's a lot of exchanging of resources and removal spells killing creatures. So how do you break that parity? You do have a card drawing spell like Read the Bones, and you can say that Chandra Pyromaster is a kind of a card drawing spell in a sense. Also, it's a unique answer to Bloodsoaked Champion. You have Hostilities if you want to kind of go crazy with a kind of Wrath effect, but I imagine that they're going to have 1 threat at a time.
So
matchup.
If I'm in Ken's position, I'm sort of feeling like I can't convert into a full-blown control deck because we have a lot of the same tools. But Andy's deck is definitely more aggressive than mine. He's shown Bloodsoaked Champion, he's shown Brain Maggot. So I want to get a little bit more controlling in the matchup, but not a lot more controlling. So I think something like End Hostilities is out of place, but I do like Anger of the Gods. I do like the Chandras. I like the Elspeth, and I'm fine bringing the Utter Ends as well. So become more removal-centric, but not trying to flip into a full-blown control deck.
What do we see on the other side?
3 Magma Spray, 3 Hushwing Griff, 2 Erase, 2 Suspension Field, 2 Harness by Force, 2 Anger of the Gods, 1 Erebos God of the Dead. You know what? Not really a fan of anything here. I guess the suspension fields are fine because Butcher of the Horde's a threat you want to answer, but I think Andy should probably be sideboarding pretty light here.
It's just the dynamic of this matchup is very strange to me. Just because all these creatures are going to die so much, just back and forth, kill your creature, kill your creature. Who's the king of the mountain? Is it Butcher of the Horde, or is it a card like Elspeth, which Ketter actually has in his sideboard? Maybe that's what he's supposed to try to work towards. Also has one in his main deck, too.
No, I think that Ken trying to just chain together removal spells into Elspeth is a great game plan. Andy doesn't really have any analog here because he's the more aggressive deck of the two. So I think he does more or less needs to stay true to himself and sideboard very light, if at all.
Well, these players will finish shuffling up here for game number 2. We will talk about regionals and states here every Pro Tour weekend. Well, now we've got some organized play for you guys to do.
This program has been so successful, we've kind of had it intermittently throughout the last couple of years, but now we are turning it into a full-blown annual program. The regional championships is the next upcoming event. Winter, February 7th and 8th. We've recently announced the venues and the dates for that show, or for those set of shows, so we're really excited about that. Keep in mind, these events are occurring every Pro Tour weekend, so if you're not qualified, make sure to check out the regionals or states championships nearest to you. Again, regionals will be occurring in the winter and summer, and states in the autumn and spring.
San Diego Games and Comics, mister.
Oh, I've gunslinged there for pre-releases before. I know that spot.
Very nice. Right by you. I know you're gonna have we're gonna have the weekend off. I'm just saying, if you're not a regional champion, you better have a good reason.
Well, you are looking at a drive to Portland. You're about 3 hours away from yours.
Don't mind if I do.
Okay.
I'm not afraid.
I'm about a half an hour from San Diego Games and Comics.
Must be nice. So close.
It's pretty close.
But I don't mind a drive to Portland. That's no big deal, as that's where the regionals will be for me up there in the Pacific Northwest. Now, of course, if we make it early enough, we get this sweet playmat.
Exactly, free for the first 200 people who register for their regional championships. StarCityGames.com/regionals for more information. Again, February 7th and 8th this year, Pro Tour weekend. We will have something going on either regionals or states every single weekend in 2015.
And really, how can you say no to that playmat?
Look at that. They're all finally together.
It's about time. Best one's still on the left.
Hanging out, mostly doe-eyed, although some of them quite menacing looking, actually.
A bit evil. A bit evil. We know the truth there, Squirrel Confidant. We do know the truth. Game number 2 going to be underway here. Temple of Triumph there for Ketter. Ferguson with a Nomad Outpost. And Ketter says, I'll play 1-2 and pass the turn back. Over to Andy, who will draw a card. And just going to be a lot of exchanging resources. It's odd because, you know, Ferguson's deck may not be the best, I think, maybe for overall in the format, but it seems great in this particular matchup.
I like what he's done with this build a lot here, because my biggest critique of this deck, again, is just too often the deck starts off at 3. And in most matchups, you're the aggressor, and I just don't think that's acceptable. So by lowering the curve, Andy can capitalize on some cards like Butcher the Horde and Crackling Doom that are selling you, getting some early damage to make this card as powerful as you'd like.
Now this is a game breaker in this sort of mirror match. A copy of Hordling Outburst will give him 3 goblins, and what we saw the last game is why this is so good right here. Is because Ferguson's going to sacrifice his Bloodstained Mire here in search of a land, but what we saw the last game is Ketter on turn 3 played a Goblin Rabble Master. Ferguson was able to kill it and then go about his business. Well, you can't Lightning Strike or Magma Jet these.
Exactly. And especially because Andy's build is so much more aggressive. You know, he has, Brain Maggots and Bloodsoak champions that these goblins match up very nicely against anyway.
This was a card, and the strategy is something that Brad Nelson and Team Revolution used to great success with their red-white kind of mid-range aggro deck at the Pro Tour. Players were expecting you to play, okay, Rabble Master or Mantis Rider or something like that, and you just go, how about this instead? And it really just lined up so well against them, as here is a Goblin token off a Goblin Rabble Master going to come to the red zone here. See if Ketter has any interest in blocking. I'm not sure if he does.
And these decks are so flush with removal. You saw Kent when they deployed the Rabble Master, Kent immediately moved a Magma Jet to the front of his hand. They're so flush with removal for individual threats that something like make 3 1/1s is a lot more powerful than make a 3/3.
Magma Jet on the upkeep here for Ketter. He's going to get the opportunity to scry. And it looks like he may have found another copy of Hordling Outburst. And again, this card is an absolute nightmare. It's funny to say that, oh yeah, just 3 1/1 goblins is the disaster, but Ken is playing 4 of that card.
Well, you saw how much the matchup in game 1 was defined by removal, and Andy having Bloodsoak champion that Kent really couldn't do anything about. So cards that are good against individual pieces of removal seem to me what the matchup is largely about. Game 1 we saw it with Bloodsoak champion, and now game 2 we're seeing it with Hordling Outburst.
Here's a Thought Seize from Ferguson, going to target Ketter. He's going to lose a little bit of life, excuse me. But you'll see Ketter's hand, a Hordling Outburst, an MVP in this matchup. Butcher the Horde does seem pretty good. Glare of Heresy, an answer to opposing Butcher the Hordes, and then just a boring old mountain.
Would have to imagine that Hordling Outburst has to be the card to take here, just because Andy has lots of hypothetical answers to Butcher the Horde, but Hordling Outburst is just a real pain to slog through.
Don't know the contents of Ferguson's hand at this point, but I'm with you. Hordling Outburst causes a lot of problems in a matchup like this, and we'll see if he does opt to take that. Butcher the Horde is probably the more powerful card in the abstract, but potential removal spells, so many of them. Crackling Doom gets it taken care of among many other options. Thoughtseize will take care of the Hordling Outburst. Does make sense. So Ketter left with the big 5/4 flyer, a Glare of Heresy, and a mountain. And you can see Ketter's hand. He does not have an answer to this. So there's a Rabble Master. The Goblin's going to come in. Ketter's going to go down to 19. He'll have to find an answer for this problematic creature now.
And I'm pretty sure they can't scryed a Mammoth Jet to the bottom on the Mammoth Jet he saw last turn. So Whirling Outburst on the top. Second card, unknown. But as you mentioned, really important that Kent finds an answer to this Rabble Master. For as good as Whirling Outbursts are, eventually Rabble Master will overpower it.
The draw for the turn was actually a copy of Chandra, and that is what Ketter will deploy. Now that cannot kill the Rabble Master, at least not yet. He's going to shoot 1 and 1 there.
A little surprised by this. I think Kent might have been better served by just attacking first, because Andy knows the contents of Kent's hand. He knows there's no pinging effect. And then he probably blocks to the Rabble Master, and then post-combat you can shoot the Rabble Master down.
Yeah, before even playing the Chandra.
Exactly. You just first order of business is just attack there. Kent's probably not going to respect that you drew exactly Chandra. He'll run a block, and then post-combat you can shoot it down.
There's a little bit of risk there, though, right? I think where if you attack and he just has no blocks, then what's our play?
The same thing. You just Chandra, plus it, and shoot down the token. The same thing you're going to do anyway.
But now there's a world that exists where he can kill the token, right? He can kill the Rabble Master can kill the Chandra. Now it depends on how highly you do value that card, though.
Right.
Because you might be okay with that exchange.
What if you send in 1 token?
Now we're talking.
That's how you split the
there
difference.
You go. That's
one token's
talking.
a freebie because it's
I don't think it might block. You might be able to induce it.
I don't know what. It's a really tough read attacking with the 1. I don't know what that implies exactly.
There's a Butcher of the Horde. The big guy is here, and he is not happy.
And I had to imagine this is just taking care of Chandra. In concert with a token.
Yep. The token, of course, being made from the Rabble Master sacrifice to the Butcher. That'll eat the Chandra. Now, Ketter does have an answer, thankfully, in Glare of Heresy. So he's not going to get run down by this Butcher of the Horde, but that card can cause a lot of problems, as we saw in the last game.
He's also picked up a Sarkhan this turn, so now a second removal spell that could potentially answer this Butcher.
Decisions here. Yep, there is Sarkhan. Shrug his shoulders. Ooh, what are we mowing down here?
Oh, are we thinking about not taking care of the Butcher? I guess he has the Glare in his hand.
Yep, I think I'm okay with this. Here's an attack. If he's just going to use Sarkhan as, kind of removal spell, and that's it, that's his only plans for the card, I think I'm okay with this.
It feels like, given the pacing of the game, you might be able to squeeze out a lot more than just that.
Okay.
We'll see. I can understand, he wants to be mana efficient, and he's worried that this Glare can't kill anything else.
I think if you are playing the Sarkhan this turn, I think you're killing the Rabble Master a very high percentage of the time because you do have Glare for the Butcher. That said, that's your only answer to it. You found out your opponent not only has Thoughtseize now, but you saw Brain Mag at the last game.
Exactly. There's a lot of risk with running this line.
Yep.
And he has shown a lot of discard. In an effort to be as mana efficient as possible, if Kent draws an untapped land next turn and nothing too bad happens, this is an incredible swing for him. But that's asking for a lot.
Looks like it's time to attack. Interesting situation if he just wants to ignore the Sarkhan, but I'd be surprised if that's the case. You do see Magma Spray in hand.
He may be able to do exactly that.
Yeah, first things first, get the Sarkhan off the table. I like that. Let's see what the follow-up's going to be. Bloodsoaked Champion. Pass the turn back with mana available. Ketter going to draw.
And this is the worst draw possible for Kent here. It's a land, which he doesn't really need, but it doesn't come into play on tap, so he can't cast 2 spells in this turn.
There's a Glare. Here's the attack. Of course, Bloodsoaked Champion can't attack. So beatdowns. You can see the work that Whirling Outburst does.
Oh, it's been huge.
It's been an absolute nightmare. Ferguson's down to 9. He just really can't do a lot about this card. It's so hard for him to efficiently answer. And heaven forbid that Ketter draws another one.
Yeah, he has no copies of Arc Lightning in his sideboard, so when it comes up, he just has to weather the storm.
And now this is a card that I had a feeling would be good in this matchup if he can get to it. Elspeth was the draw. And it looks like he's gotten to the 6 mana. Might be a removal spell here. And again, this is this situation where this is just, you don't want to do this if you're Andy.
But he can't not do it.
Yeah.
He can't take these points of damage.
You put him in the squeeze. So there goes a token. You kill 2/3 of a card. Well, 2/3 of his dead. You kill 1/3 of a card with the Magma Jet.
Yeah. But I do love Elspeth in this matchup for Kent because I believe he's the control deck here. Even though they're both Mardu, he's the one with the better late game.
Yeah, this is what allows him to run away. He's got to expend. You saw how many resources he had to expend just to kill tokens for Hordeling Outbursts. He hasn't even gotten the job done yet.
And Kent's ahead on the life total race, too, by a lot. Just a completely one-sided affair.
There are 3 soldier tokens. Elspeth up to 5. We go back Ferguson's way here in just a moment. He did finish scrying. I think he can tell he's in some trouble as he's shaking his head now. All these tokens. You have an Elspeth, I don't. Looking at a lightning strike. I just can't efficiently get the job done on these creatures.
Yeah, he's looking at a hand of just removal spells, 5-mana cards he can't cast, and it doesn't work.
Makes you wonder what's on top of the deck. Well, there's the untapped land. That's not too surprising because of the scry, but now I just got to pass the turn back.
The old Bloodsoul champion on D. Not a great spot to be in.
Don't think so, no. Not where it wants to be. Ketter gonna go reaching. Looks like he may want to cast a Butcher Warrior. He says, first things first, let's put the elevator up. Yeah, 3 soldier tokens that can't attack.
Give him some food for the Butcher.
And there is the Butcher. So he's gonna sacrifice a new token to give this haste. It's red zone time. Yep. 2 cards used to kill the Butcher of the Horde.
Ken has generated so many cards that are worth 2+ cards.
Yep.
The Butcher, the Hordeling Outburst, the Elspeth.
You have to imagine that's his plan in the matchup.
And you can only win that way if you're being very aggressive, and you see Ken at 17.
Yep.
Just has run out of resources as Ken has produced too many cards that are worth more than one of Andy's cards.
Andy Ferguson is going to concede the game. So Kent Ketter has tied things up here as Mardu aggro the mirror. Going to go to game number 3. One of these players is going to be 8-0 afterward.
And I would like to see.
I like this deck.
I would like to see Andy get his turn 1 Bloodsoul champion.
You work on this deck for me for Portland. This is the one.
The Mardu beatdown deck?
This is what I want to be playing. Some sort of Mardu deck. Doesn't have to be beat down.
Okay.
But some sort of Mardu deck. I want to be casting Crackling Doom in Portland when you build your deck for me.
Okay. Andy's list is the language that I like. I don't know if I like every card in this list. I'm suspicious of the Brain Maggots, for example.
Okay.
But trying to get Bloodsoul champion into this list is something I definitely approve of.
It wouldn't surprise me if Brain Maggot's like a response to, the Jeskai Heroic combo deck.
Gives a little more interaction, although he also has a lot of cheap removal, so it's not like he's lacking for that. But he also just wants something to do on turn 2, and there really aren't that many great drops in red or black at 2 right now. It's part of the problem.
We will talk about Cardboard Crack here very briefly as these players do shuffle up. 3 books available at Star City Games.
Very exciting stuff. The very popular Magic the Gathering webcomic now available to you in book form. 3 books available. StarCityGames.com/cardboardcrack for more information. They are on sale now for $12.99 a piece, so make sure to get yours today.
Look, if you don't follow them on Twitter, you're doing it wrong. Fix it. Go on Twitter. Get it done. It's worth your time.
Yeah, I don't... See, the thing is...
It's not you personally.
Well, you and I are often talking to one another, and you said you, so you can understand my confusion.
So you felt I was addressing you
right
in that situation. I could understand.
Correct.
You were wrong, but...
The general you.
Yes.
The royal
you, yes, is what I was using in this instance. So that's okay. I can understand the confusion.
Right.
Kent Ketter, number 11 on our Season 4 leaderboard. He is trying to climb the ranks here. When we talked to him, he said, looks like I'm not going to be able to go to Richmond. I'm going to go to double IQ weekend. That's about, a couple hours closer to me, about 4 or 5 hours closer to where I live. So, all right. You plan on going to Grand Prix, New Jersey? Maybe. It's not that important to me. I'm more concerned with Open Series points. Can't go to Portland. He said he's going to make the trek to Atlanta, which is about 7 or 8 hours from Bloomington, Indiana, which is where he is located. So, for him, this tournament's huge.
Yeah.
He doesn't get to do as much playing as someone like Brad or Todd, who's going to go to every Open Series event for the rest of the year. He's only got certain ones he can go to due to school. And 7-0 is a heck of a start. He's got to capitalize.
Absolutely. Is Andy rocking the Mardu sleeves in his Mardu deck?
That looks to be the case.
That is great.
I'm a big fan. Cards are on the table.
Yep.
Let it be known. This is what I'm doing. Beat me if you can. Ketter going to draw 6 cards. Does not look thrilled with that opening hand. Well, it looks like he's going to keep it. Does he have a turn 1 Bloodsoaked Champion? That's what you wanted.
This is the card. I want to see how this looks on turn 1.
He's going to apply the pressure. Here's Nomad Outpost.
And these decks start so slowly. This Bloodsoaked Champion has the potential to do a ton.
It's a Thought Seize. Ketter has an Utter End, a Magma Jet, a Chain of the Rocks, a Stormbreath Dragon, a Temple, and a Mountain. Actually, a pretty good mulligan hand.
This is a solid mulligan, but this Chain of the Rocks is the only thing that's allowing Ken to keep his gloves up against a Bloodsoaked Champion. If Andy strips him of that, I mean, the Magma Jet's not a great response. Long term, Utter End slow.
There goes the chain. And now, Bloodstained Mire going to tap for black mana because of Urborg. And here's the Thoughts. He's taking Magma Jet in for 2. Very nice. Don't get a great look at the draw there for Ketter. Looks like it's a copy of Murderous Cut. Temple, top card. Headed, we think, to the bottom. Ken going to give another look here. Now, it's interesting because even though Ketter is in some real trouble here, a card like Hurling Outburst can really do a lot of work right now.
For sure. Though the best case scenario is Ken keeps him off balance with instants, so it's harder for him to get back the Bloodsoaked Champion. That said, still really inefficient for him to constantly be getting it back in the face of a Hurling Outburst.
If you're Ketter, you got to be thrilled that there's no Rabble Master that showed up that turn. Ketter will draw a card. There's a Mountain. He has Utter End in hand. That's a nice solution to the Bloodsoaked Champion. Ferguson going to sacrifice the Bloodstained Mire now. He's going down to 15.
You can see there's a lot of tension on both these players. Andy knows that he stripped Ken of his good action and that Ken needs a lot of help. Land drops and things to bridge the gap. And at the same time, Kent knows that his draw steps need to be very good to keep his head above water.
Ketter says, I'll take 2 more. I'm down to 14. What's the follow-up here for Ferguson? There's a land. There's a Butcher of the Horde. Now, Ketter does have an answer, which is mighty important.
Big tempo swing here. I mean, it looked like the coast was clear from Andy's perspective. Now, Ken had a bunch of draw steps to find something. Could have been Crackling Doom as well, but...
Mountain the draw.
Now he has the ability to Utter End. He has the 5th land in hand for the Storm Breath.
Now, do you like potentially Utter Ending right away? Just so that your opponent can't do something like kill my own creature. But I guess if they're using rules on their own creature, you're probably okay with that.
Yeah, I think you're
probably are. I mean, it's a little, you know,
with Storm Breath
cute.
With Storm Breath in hand, I say, yeah, go ahead, knock yourself out.
Now, I do wonder if he's going to Utter End now. Also, casting Storm Breath here is not a lock. You're playing against an opponent that has untapped mana, hasn't had a reason to cast a removal spell. You don't want to get Crackling Doomed.
I think that Kent needed to cast his Utter End there.
I do too.
Just taking too much damage.
Yeah. No Crackling Doom here for Ferguson, though. And the race is certainly on now. Ferguson down to 10, Ketter's at 12. Ketter's hand at Caves of Koilos and an Utter End. Ferguson does not have a removal spell yet. He has Stormbreath Dragon of his own, though. Now here's an attack for 6.
That's the problem. This is 4 extra points of damage that Ken has taken by not using the Utter End. Also means if he draws a spell this turn, he probably can't cast that and the Utter End at the same time.
And now all of a sudden, Ketter might have to hang back on defense, which is not the spot he wants to be in. Not in this situation.
Of course, he can't Utter End the Stormbreath Dragon, nor can he take a hit from it. So he probably has to trade and hope for the best.
Ferguson's hand is a pretty nice one. Butcher of the Horde, and I believe a Blood-Soaked Champion. Ketter just has to pass the turn back now, or I imagine he doesn't want to. But he's got an Utter End at the ready.
And Andy knows about it.
And it is a much different game if Ketter is 4 life higher. He's taking 4. He could be at 10. And Ferguson right now, his grip, he has a Blood-Soaked Champion and a Butcher of the Horde. And I feel like what Ferguson's trying to do is set him up, right? He plays both those in the same turn, sacrifice the champion, get you.
Yep.
And if that was the case, Ketter would be going down to 1, not negatives.
Yep.
And might be able to continue racing here with the Stormbreath Dragon.
Especially when your opponent knows about the Utter End. Like if the play is close about whether or not you want to kill the Bloodsoaked Champion or not, the fact that your opponent knows it's in your hand has to be the tipping point.
I think so.
They're not going to just open themselves up to some horrible turn if they can avoid it.
Well, here's the attacks. That's a block. There's the other end on the Bledsoe champion.
And now this is a disaster because Kent had to end up doing it anyway.
Yep. There's a land. I think if you're Ferguson, assuming those two cards in his hand are Butcher and Bledsoe champion, I think you just say, play both of these, yeah. Do your worst.
Put you to the test.
Now, his worst can be pretty good. Ketter's going to need a big draw step here. That's a copy of Stormbreath Dragon, I think, which is pretty fitting given who we're watching play.
No, it's
anger. Anger of the gods, okay.
And that was there. I mean, this is the play I was about to say. He needs to.
He's got to sacrifice
He can sack it and then get it back with the Butcher next turn.
Yep, he's got to sacrifice it. Can't forget. And you see, it looked like he put it into exile like it was going. And now that's the conversation they're going to have is, did he sacrifice it? Did he not sacrifice it? It looks like he did.
And if that's the case, it means Kent's drawing very slim. Because Elspeth isn't an answer anymore. Any individual pieces, spot removal are not answers. And Bledsoe Champion just doing so much work.
That Bledsoe Champion, that first Bledsoe Champion, 10 points of damage this game.
Yep.
10. It's going to come back. You saw Ferguson sacrifice it to get a little advantage with the Butcher and then replay it. Pass the turn back. Ketter draws a card. It's a land. That's going to do it. Andy Ferguson's going to win this match over Ken Ketter. 2-1. We knew Marty Rec was going to have to get out of this one alive, and it'll be Ferguson's take with Bloodsoaked Champion getting the job done. He's 8-0.
I love it. I love trying to reduce the curve of this deck.
Bloodsoaked Champion was very impressive. Very impressive.
Games 1 and 3, it's what doomed Kent.
Yeah.
Just took way too much damage.
That recursive threat, where it doesn't have a great answer to it. Thoughtseize took away the relatively clean and cheap answer to it. Chain of the Rocks and the card that could buy some time there in Magma Jet. And eventually Ketter, he had to Utter End it. Didn't want to use Utter End on that spell. Would rather save it for a bigger spell. But maybe that was a card that mattered all along.
Even if there wasn't, these decks don't have a huge burn component to it.